this meeting of the Facilities and Capital Planning Committee, Subcommittee of the Shawsheen Tech Valley School Committee on Wednesday, April 14th, 2021, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15, 2020 order, imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Shawsheen Valley Regional Vocational Technical School District Subcommittee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen or watch the meeting may do so by accessing the meeting link above. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Shawsheen website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. First on the agenda is the roll call of the members, and in attendance, Mrs. Gillis.
Hello.
Mr. Moffett.
Here. Hello.
And we also have it in attendance from administration is Dr. Brad Jackson, Superintendent of Shawsheen, and Assistant Superintendent for the business end of the house, Ms. Melanie Hagman. So the first next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. We last convened on November 16th, 2020, and I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
So motioned.
Second.
And so the roll call vote shall be Mr. Moffett,
Yes.
Mrs. Gillis,
Yes.
and the chair is yes, a unanimous 3-0. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is to review and discuss recent correspondence from the MSBA. Now, those members who do not know what the MSBA is, it is the Massachusetts School Building, I believe, Administration.
Authority.
And
according to
authority,
the
and it's
paperwork.
okay. Thank you, Carl. So just where we're going from here. One of the things that I wanted to do when I get on the school committee, one of my goals, of course, who would have thought that COVID was lurking? One of the things I wanted to do as a committee member is to see what do we need at Shawsheen? Where do we go from here? Taking a look at what facilities we have and how can we make the place better? Of course, COVID hits and then we have to make do with what's going on and get through this. And hopefully, and as I talked to Dr. Jackson and Ms. Hagman, as the springtime came about here, I was thinking that maybe we could start a discussion where hopefully we've seen the light at the tunnel here and things hopefully are getting better. Maybe we could start a discussion for what the future is going to be all about. And so those of you who've heard MSBA obviously is an authority that can help out with projects. And so this email came along and I saw it, and Brad was in contact with us about what they can do or just an idea. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Jackson and Ms. Hagman, and we can go from there.
Thanks. And this is more, the purpose of this is more of a discussion and just an introduction to subcommittee members about the MSBA process and how the implications of this process. So the Massachusetts School Building Authority is funded, has independent funding from 1 cent on the Massachusetts state sales tax. Those monies go into an independent trust fund that is exclusively for the use of the MSBA to assist local school districts in major school construction projects. There is a very lengthy, very public, and very comprehensive and very competitive application process to be chosen by the MSBA to partner with a member district. And that process begins with the submission of what is called a statement of interest. I have for the past 3 years, I've written statements of interest to the MSBA in my former position in Holliston, seeking their support of a project at Holliston High School. And over the past 3 years, those submissions have been unsuccessful. It is very competitive. And you have no idea of knowing whether you will be accepted in your first application or if it will take you 10 years, because there's a window for application that takes place only once per year. That window is about to open and will be open until April 20th. The process for applying is very cumbersome, requires an incredible amount of work on the part of your administrative team to document the current conditions of the school, the current deficiencies and the challenges that we're facing, and to essentially put together a problem statement, if you will, which outlines what some of the challenges we are facing, whether it be, and we have to qualify under a number of different opportunities. One is energy efficiency, the other is overcrowding, the other is a school that has been damaged by weather, another is a school that has outlived its usefulness. There are a number of different criteria. The MSBA has and the process to get, in order to submit a statement of interest, the superintendent must receive direct approval from the school committee to submit a statement of interest. In K-12 districts that are associated with a single town, they must also get voted permission from the select board or executive authority. In the case of regional school districts, that is not required. That does not mean, however, that there is there needs to be an extremely high level of cooperation, collaboration, and communication between a regional school district and its member communities. Because if you are accepted into the MSBA process, it's kind of like Alice going down the looking glass. You do have some exits, but they can be painful, and they can also, in terms of impacting your ability in the future to go back to the well. So it is it's a very, the process is something that needs to be viewed, in my opinion, both through a practical lens and a political lens. And as well as a financial lens, both in terms of this district's ability to pay for a major a project, as well as our member district's ability to pay for a major assessment that would go along with a project. So just so I can kind of give you a sense of the whole process, in April, districts can submit a statement of interest. Around the November timeframe, the MSBA announces the districts that it is going to invite into the process. That part of the process is a critically important process and can cost a significant amount of money, where one would undergo essentially a feasibility study, which confirms the problems that we have outlined, and then does a study of the options available to the school to solve those problems. those options traditionally range from do nothing, cosmetic fixes, an addition renovation, or a tear down and a new build. With the cost, and the cost of the feasibility study is probably, in the case of Shawsheen, I don't know, would probably be high six figures at least. But the MSBA would share partial costs with that. I can't tell you what percentage the MSBA would share. It is a very complex formula that's based on each community has a number, and it would depend, and it would basically be the weighted average of our member communities' numbers. But it would probably be, I actually don't know what numbers we're seeing. I don't know how much, for example, what the reimbursement rate was for Bill Ricker Memorial, the new Bill Ricker Memorial High School. But it would be lower than that, and it would probably be higher than Bedford or Burlington's number. But you know, it would, the range they give is 40 to 60%. We would probably be closer to the 40% than we would be to the 60%. And Melanie, if I'm saying anything that that you disagree with, or you have additional information, I don't want to mislead anybody, and so, and these things change a lot. So if if my numbers are off, please, or the information about the process is off, please share with. Please feel free to interrupt me. So.
The
During
only
the
thing I was just going to add is the last 3 projects that we did with them, we got reimbursed between 52 and 56%.
Oh, perfect. So that's helpful.
That's what
So
we've seen before. Yeah.
So for sake of argument, assume 50-50. Maybe that's probably a good place to start.
And it's okay that we don't have the feasibility study done, that we're basically saying, we know our building is X number of years old. We see these problems, or these problems have cropped up. We don't even start the feasibility study until the statement of intent or interest is accepted and the MSBA says, we'll talk to you. Then
Yes.
we do affirm, okay, this is actually what's wrong. This is actually what we want to repair. And then we discuss more money then.
And yes, and frankly, it's actually preferred that you haven't done a feasibility study, because they're not going to trust it, and they're going to want it done by their, because the one thing that even if they're not paying 50%, they are running the show. It is their process. It is their money. And you follow their process, whether you like it or not. So even if we had spent money on a feasibility study that said, you know what, we should put up a new vocational wing over there, wherever over there is, they would say, yeah, that's really nice, but we're starting over from scratch and doing a feasibility study. And that would be done by experts. We would bring on a project team of architects, of plumbing and HVAC to analyze all of our infrastructure, etc. And it would probably, in the case of a vocational technical high school, include programmatic experts in the shop areas that we've identified as areas that are deficient. So the feasibility study would take, probably at least a year to conduct, and ultimately would result in a proposal that would have to be, and then that would have to go through the appropriation process by the member communities and by the school committee itself. It is somewhat complicated by the fact that member communities may or may not, depending on the amount of money they have to commit to a project, they may or may not seek a debt exclusion override. I think they can do that for a regional project, right, Melanie, for their individual contribution. So it can be a long and drawn out process, particularly for a regional school district.
But if we're accepted at the beginning, they're saying, we'll support you through the feasibility study and through the build or the repair or the renovate. The only thing that would be a problem is if the money wasn't there on our end, but they can't say yes and then see our feasibility study and turn around and say no.
They, as I said, they have, this is like, never mind, I was going to make a stupid parallel. This is where in an equal partnership where one partner has the tie-breaking vote,
Yep.
they have the tie-breaking vote. So if the school committee and the administration wanted to do an addition renovation, they could say, nope, we don't want to spend money on that. We're only going to do a new build. And there they have the tie vote. So you either say, okay, we're going to do a new build, or we are going to part ways and be done. And basically wasted the money we spent on the feasibility study.
So it's a gamble, basically. So you submit your process to what Taryn was talking about. It might get approved. And then even from there, after that, you go through your whole feasibility study. And either you could have some issue at the town level, or if that gets approved, then it goes to before the MSBA, and you can't come to an agreement where what you're saying is different than what you can't come to agreement. You could potentially part ways, and then you're going to blow six figures on the whole feasibility study that you've gone through to make your point.
Yes, that's possible.
Yep.
And it's possible whether it's a regional project or a local elementary school or a, whatever. There is kind of a catch-22 associated with the statement of interest process. One of the things that, I don't know how deeply written this is into stone, but one of my experiences with the MSBA, particularly around, because as I said, we had applied in Holliston for a high school. They conduct not an analysis, but they assess the community's commitment to a project. So in other words, if we had a superintendent and that was gung-ho to do something, and we got a 6-4 vote by the school committee that was like, yeah, okay, whatever, submit the SOI. And then they came out and did a site visit and talked to a couple of town managers. They said, we do not have, this is not going to pass in pick the member community you want to pick. They will get the MSBA will get cold feet and won't select you for the SOI process. So they are going to do an informal assessment of the political climate that they're buying into, and they understand the challenges associated with regional school districts, and they they have some scars to prove it. I don't know if you followed what happened, for example, at Minuteman, but there were several member school districts who actually threatened to leave Minuteman if the project went through, because they didn't send enough students to Minuteman to justify their minimum expenditure in their regional agreement. So they were sending a handful of kids. It would be cheaper to move from Minuteman to another vocational district that had that wasn't thinking of it to serve those 5 kids. So there's a lot of complexity here. The bottom line here, in my opinion, is that this is a school that needs a feasibility study, But I'm not convinced yet that financially or politically, we are ready to go to dive into these waters. We
Even
haven't,
though it's a year out.
well, it's at least a year out.
Exactly.
It could be, I mean, it could be 7 years out. That's, I mean, the tricky part here is that, but you also have to assume that you might get selected the first year.
Right.
You know, there's a political aspect to this that I think is really important to understand. And I guess to speak candidly, one of the key people in that process to push the political process through is the superintendent, who's got to meet with town managers and build, and build understanding and build and understand what their needs are. And given the fact that we are, that I'm only on a 2-year contract on purpose for all our sakes, and that Shawsheen will be, will be looking for superintendent in the near term. I'm not sure whether the conditions are really right. We have essentially a brand new school committee. And it's just, it's a risk. And I think it's a risk that, I would say that in my opinion, the best use of everybody's time right now is education, is to get the members of the school committee, all 10 of them, a keen understanding of, I mean, we have school committee members who haven't even stepped foot in the building because of COVID, ever. And nobody has stepped foot in this building in the past year on the school committee, with very few exceptions. So, none of you respectfully are in a position to advocate in your own towns about, overcrowding in this shop because you haven't physically seen it. So I just think the cart is a little bit before the horse, and I'm a little reluctant. So I think, in my view, as much as I think Shawsheen needs to be, this school needs a significant, a very expensive project in the next 5 years, probably exceeding $100 million. I mean, big project. This building is 50 years old. But I just think that if we took the time to get everybody on board, to start the conversations in our member communities, not just in all the meetings we've had with the finance committees, they are aware of this. They know that, that we're on borrowed time here. They're worried about it. But, Wilmington's just had their SOI approved for a K-5 building. Burlington High School's been submitting an SOI for Burlington High School for the past 10 years. Tewksbury is still, is really heavy in debt right now because of a lot of the school building they've been doing. And I just think there's a lot of education that needs to happen by getting select boards out here, getting town managers physically to tour the building while it's occupied this fall, so they can see what our programs look like, so they can appreciate everybody, it's not hard to explain what 24 kids in a classroom looks like, but it is really hard to explain what 24 kids in a carpentry shop looks like. They have to see that. So I'm, as much as I want to go full blast forward on this, I just think it would be, I think it's a little early. And I think education's the key should be the key for the coming year, with an idea of understanding, a year from now that we may be we hopefully will be in a different position where we can look at a statement of interest and have set the right groundwork with our member communities so that they're aware of it.
Brad, if we did it now and we got accepted, and then, a year and a half from now, when we go to the town said, no, we can't afford it, we won't afford it. That, dead in the water. What happens in terms of us being allowed to do another? I mean, I realize that in that case, we've lost $100,000 or whatever, multiple $100,000 that the feasibility study cost. But what does that do for our standing at the MSBA? Like, are we then not allowed to apply for a couple years because we turned them down?
The process is very competitive.
And the fact that we turned them down would not be looked at favorably.
It would not be looked at favorably. And I mean, that's my opinion. They would never tell you that.
Of course not.
But, they want to invest their resource. I mean, they will have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars on a feasibility study too.
Right.
That leaves a very distasteful taste in everybody's mouth. It'll leave it won't taste good to us and it won't taste good to them. I am far from an expert in our regional agreement, but, and in regional law, but there actually are some provisions of regional law, of regional school district law that actually don't give all members a veto right.
So we could potentially insist that they have to fork over the money, which just leaves bad blood, even if we get
leaves, awful blood. And again, it's a scenario, it's a worst case scenario that you obviously want to avoid at all costs. But
but to your point, Brad, how will it be like if you're, like you said, the superintendent is the biggest driver behind this, and we'd have a brand new school committee. So to Terrence's point, if you basically did, that may, to your Melanie, is that going to be not viewed upon favorably? I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, but we're in a, time of transition right now. Would that play into us being accepted or not accepted?
It might, but this is all, the only thing we control is whether we apply. How many other districts are in a position to apply? What happened with COVID? Is there like a backlog because of COVID, or is this going to be a quieter year because of COVID? I actually have no idea. I can tell you that if the school committee, if the school committee tells me or votes in the affirmative to apply, we will put in every effort and we will make it a very competitive application. And we're not going to just apply for the sake of applying. If the committee wants us to apply, we are going to sell the MSBA very hard. And I don't think the MSBA would look unfavorably at all on a new committee or a transitioning superintendent. I just think I think it's just harder from a political I mean, I'm not trying to minimize the political role that the three of you will play, and all, and the entire committee, but the first time, the first time I did it in Holliston, first of all, the first time I went to the select board in Holliston, they said no. The second time they said yes. The third time they asked me, are you almost ready? Are you going to ask us are you going to ask us? Because we're ready to vote for it. So, and I don't say that because of me. That has nothing to do with me. That has to do with the psychology of being being part of the planning process and being part of being included as opposed to dictated to.
And if I can just add, Kent, so we have been approved for 3 projects in the past. And the life science wing, the former superintendent, Charlie Lyons, and I spent a lot of time with the town managers. And we actually brought in our financial advisor, who fortunately worked with Burlington and Bedford at the time. And we really, spent a lot of time looking at the financial impact it would have on the 5 districts. So it, to Brad's point too, this is political, they were on board, they kind of approved it, the financial piece, and then we went out and, had to go through all the towns, if they had town meeting or not, and so forth. But it was a process, and it was very helpful to have the financial advisor meet with the 5 town managers and us to say, here's different scenarios. If you borrow money, how long you want the bonds for, this is your rating, this is what it's going to look like. And I kind of alluded to it the last time with Burlington. There's so much on the back end. I mean, they actually considered projections of growth of enrollment, of what the tax basis looks like, what could all of these, factors play into their ability to pay this going forward. So even that piece, forget even the whole facilities piece, but even that piece alone was very time consuming just to make sure that everyone understood and approved it to move forward.
Brad, you're done June of 2022, is that correct?
Yep.
Basically. So if we applied now, we got in on the first try, we are potentially saying, hi, nice to meet you, Mr. and Mrs. New Superintendent. Guess what? You have this huge project that you need to do with 5 member towns that you've never met anybody from.
That's a selling point for the job, not a, I have to tell you, any superintendent you want to attract to Shawsheen would jump over corpses to get the opportunity to design, to be part of a project like this.
So if we don't do it this year, we could do it next year, even though we had a brand new superintendent, because the superintendent.
Absolutely. It would, I think it would make Shawsheen much more Shawsheen's a very attractive position, but I think it would make it even more so. And frankly, if there was somebody who was intimidated by it, I don't think you'd want him as a superintendent anyhow.
Good point. I think if we don't do it, we should start in the fall reaching out to the towns. Because it's going to look different next fall. It's not going to look the same as it looked 3 years ago. It's not going to look like it looks right now, obviously. But I think realistically, we're not going to be 100% back to normal in the fall. But that may be the new normal. We may never, I don't know. I'm completely guessing. But we may never get back to what it looked like 3 years ago. And so, that might be a very good time. In the fall, the town managers aren't worrying about the budget yet. They're not worrying about springtime meeting. Bring them in, show, do a little bit of a presentation about the place. You'll at this point have been here a year, so you can talk intelligently about the school. Ron, Kent, and I can talk intelligently about the school. Melanie, of course, could talk intelligently about the school with her eyes closed. But, I say if we don't do it, we still start getting ready to do it. We don't just say, let's wait a year.
That is my strong recommendation. This is not a no, this is a wait a year.
Yes.
And because I just don't think we're ready yet. I also have to remind everybody that one of the things that is going to be working against us is the fact that we have received MSBA money in the past.
Right.
They're not gonna, they are not gonna be excited about the prospect of impacting some of the facilities that they've already paid for. So that may limit us a little bit in terms of either our marketability within the MSBA at the statement of interest level, or during the feasibility study, they may say, you touch that field and that's, we'll kill you.
Melanie, what are the 3 things that we've done and when did we do them, please?
Yeah, were they core or they were the accelerated? I assume they're probably core.
One was accelerated. So
Oh, okay.
probably about 20 years ago, one of the first ones I did was windows and cow walls around the building.
Windows and what?
Cow wall in the gym. So you know that whitish material, it's not glass, it's that funky stuff over the gym. So we did that. We did some rooftop units as part of that project. Then we did the life science wing. That was about 10 years ago. And the accelerated repair was the boiler. So that was about 750,000. That was the smallest one we did. But it was a challenge.
When was that one?
Brad said, you get appointed engineers, you get appointed contractors. It was a challenge. But those were the 3 that we did.
Those are the 3, yes.
When was the boiler?
Oof.
So the
I
only
remember that,
core,
yeah,
the only core program one we did was the life science wing then.
Correct. Yeah.
correct. Yes.
So how
Yeah,
do
but
you
this
do that?
one's like, you're talking like, this is like a complete overhaul. You're
Oh,
talking a school that's 50 years old. Are we talking
Well,
like,
And that's, I guess, the discussion. Do we build a whole new building, or is it a wing, or is it something different?
And that's
you
the
know?
conversation that'll take place as part of the feasibility study.
Right.
But they will look at this as because our need is, first of all, one of the things that will make our application competitive is that, and which was a problem I had in Holliston because I didn't have this problem, is that we can check the overcrowded box. That this school is
Right.
far beyond its capacity. We have more students here than we have
Right.
capacity. So that is one of,
enrollment's increasing?
and well, and so
It's not a
that
bad
is,
problem.
that will make our application a lot more competitive than the Holliston High School one was, for example, because I couldn't check that box in Holliston. I had to check the box of, that it doesn't meet our current program needs. Well, we're going to be able to check that box too. Melanie has done this school, there's no way you'd know it's 50 years old, but once you peek behind the curtain, and so, cosmetically, this school, and mechanically, this school is in mechanically, it's in okay shape. But I have to tell you, this school is how old is it? 50 years old?
50
This school
years
has
old,
probably
yeah.
undergone 50 minor renovations at least, because they're constantly tearing down walls, putting up walls, and redefining spaces. We're very creative with how we maintain our programs within this footprint. But as you recall, if you've ever done renovations on your house, at some point in time, you just got to rip everything out and come back to bare bones. And that's essentially, I think, where we're going to end up being.
And it may come to you, like to your point, Brad, depending on each town's need. That's why, to Taryn's point, you want to get their sign on, because different towns have different needs. I mean, I can say for Burlington, I'm not in the Burlington School Committee, but I can tell you that the high school is going to wait, because there's like 2, or Pine Glen and the heck's the other one over there, Pine Glen, and but those 2 schools are going to have to be, at least one of them is going to be a scrap and redo. They're probably going to have to build a brand new one. So,
Right. Yeah.
so yeah, and then every other town probably has their own order of operations of what. So
They
it's
do.
you're gonna have to feel those out, because
Everybody's
out.
got a master facility plan.
Yep.
And the other thing, as you all know, enrollment is declining in our 5 towns, so that's part of, we're increasing, but they're not. so that is something MSBA looks at as well. We had to do quite a few years of an analysis for them to show potential trends on enrollments in the schools.
Which we'll have to redo.
Yeah.
So there's also, as Melanie implied, there's some budgetary impacts to this, getting that financial planner as part of the process, doing some more integral, doing a cohort regression model on your K-12 enrollments is easy compared to predicting enrollments in vocational schools, because it's so programmatically based, so even doing a projection that we'll have to do that would have to happen as part of the feasibility study. That would again be part of that. But this project, well, I mean, if at the end of the day, the feasibility study recommends a tear down and new build, it will be the most expensive school project ever in the 5 communities. It will be more expensive than Billerica Memorial High School, more expensive than Wilmington High School, undoubtedly, because our needs are just much, much more complex. And right now we got 1,300 kids in here. This is actually the biggest high school in the district, in the 5 districts too. I mean, if you compare 9 to 12 population. So, again, I emphasize the political side of this more than the practical side. I actually kind of fear that the MSBA would say, of course. I actually think we would probably, because of what Melanie's talking about declining enrollments, I actually think we might cut in line in front of some of our member communities and really make them.
That wouldn't go over well.
No.
So again, this takes delicate planning and thoughtful collaboration. And I just think, we could put in a statement of interest, and it would be competitive. But it's kind of like the dog that chased the car. What are you going to do with it once you catch the car? You got to have a plan, and I don't think we have a plan if we caught the car.
No.
Right.
No, I think, Brad, I'm getting the feeling. No, when I first saw this, I just wanted to dip our toe in the water here, but I know it's a long process. The building is, yes, and we've kept it in decent shape, but the infrastructure has to be addressed. I feel there's certain things that need to be addressed. So I just wanted to get the conversation going. Totally agreeable to, keep the conversation going in the fall. And I think that's I'd like to see that to go down that road. Because I don't know, to build a whole new building, it's a possibility. I'd like to see maybe we could do other things, but that would be a feasibility study. So
Right.
That's where we stand. I don't know if it's advisable to rush a letter off now, but maybe we just once we get the whole committee on board, we have another conversation, and when school starts up again, I think maybe we continue it. I don't know, Taryn and Kent, what do you think?
I agree. I do think we should give the school committee as a whole an update.
Sure.
I
We
think
will
we
do
have
that.
to as, part of the agenda, but sort of
Sure.
take a moment extra to sort of, not just, we talked and we decided not to do it, but we talked and we decided not to do it. This is why, and this is what we are going to do. So that the rest of the school committee and the public at large, because they listen here, we're moving forward, but it's a thoughtful, slow move forward. We don't want to rush into anything. We don't think this is the right time, but we do want to start talking about this so that another year doesn't go by and we're having the same conversation and we've done nothing.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Taryn, about talking to because every place has its own, every town has its own commitments. So you're gonna get a better idea talking to finance committees for the towns and town managers and selectmen and all that type of stuff. And you can start that process, like having a tour, or, doing a presentation, showing the needs and all that type of stuff. But
Kent, we started to lay the groundwork to the Borica FinCom already. They want to come and see the building, and of course, when COVID dies down, we said love to have you in, because they supported us wholeheartedly for our budget. But we kind of laid the groundwork that we might be coming back looking for some money. So I got a positive vibe, Brad. I don't know about you, but
Absolutely. And I think our building will sell itself. And I think, if we bring people in and they see what our carpentry shop looks like today, and what our all of these shops, first of all, from a capital perspective, they have all the tools they need, but that's actually a double-edged sword, because now these are very congested shops.
right.
And I could fill. I mean, we just got finished with the process of freshman shop selection, and we have some very unhappy freshman families who didn't get their preferred choice.
Yeah.
And if I were in a regular high school, I'd go back to the school committee and say, I need another teacher for math, or I need another teacher for carpentry. But even if I got another teacher, I got no place to put the kids. So, we are overcrowded.
Yeah.
And that is,
Type of space.
those two things together are going to make some people on the MSBA think twice. And I just think, so my suggestion would be, I agree, Taryn, that it may make sense for the committee, for the subcommittee to say you reviewed it and you've accepted the superintendent's recommendation to not submit this year, but we need to make a concerted effort to lay the groundwork with our member communities that the result may be different this time next year.
Right.
And
That's the thing. I mean, in the fall, we bring in those new school committee members that haven't seen the school, or even Kent, who's not new, but I don't know when's the last time you were in the building. And start bringing people in so that they can see firsthand what's going on.
Yep, I agree.
But I think we should also look at the next meeting, that this as an agenda item, and you allow other school committee members, new or old, to weigh in.
Well, there's going to be in the coming, there will be a subcommittee reports on the
27th.
April 27th agenda. There'll be subcommittee reports from the facilities subcommittee, because you had a
I'll
meeting.
report out.
So then.
Oh, yeah. No,
Ron,
I
report out
understand that,
then.
Brad. My point is that we also, even though we think it's also to give, say like this is our recommendation, but to give them the chance to weigh in.
Yeah.
Sure. Well,
Open the conversation.
We also need another member of the committee, don't we? Doesn't the
Yes, I'm going to ask Patty to
well, we need
take care of
to,
that.
there'll be the school committee will reorganize itself at the April 27th meeting, select a new chair, or select the current chair for another term. And then there'll be an opportunity for new committee members, for all committee members, to indicate their interest in which subcommittee they want to be on.
Brad,
Right.
when is Wilmington's vote?
Their election is a week from Saturday.
24th?
So it
Yeah.
is before the 27th.
Yes.
Yep.
I thought I saw that.
Burlington already had theirs.
They're done.
this
Yep.
past weekend.
We had theirs, Bedford had theirs.
You had theirs, yeah.
Yep, everybody's all
Yeah.
set except Wilmington will be the 24th. I've already talked to the gentleman who's running unopposed. He will meet with the town clerk either Saturday night after the election or Monday to be sworn in.
Okay.
I gotta do that.
Yeah, you're not even legally at this meeting.
Again?
You got to go swear. You got to go to town hall.
Town clerk. But,
I'll cover for you. Go to
Mr.
town hall.
Fiore will have to be, Mr. Fiore will have to be sworn in.
That's all.
And then if he's sworn in, then he can participate in the meeting on
Sign
Tuesday.
it. It's all good.
So
So
if
Brad,
I may,
go ahead.
can I just, so I know Mr. Gillis referenced the facility study we had. So today we were able to get the final maps printed off down in graphics because they were closed. So we have hard copies that we'd like to distribute to the facility subcommittee. And if we can wait, if there's a reorg and it's not the three of you, but we have copies, like I said, we just got today for Brad and all of you. I would request selfishly that we would have another facility subcommittee in June and look at that report and have this conversation again. The reason I ask is because in September, we start the capital budgeting process. And if there's something that we want to consider on top of all of this, I'd like the opportunity to put it in the capital budget because like I said, end of September, beginning of October is when we start distributing the capital budget, the operating budget. And believe it or not, it does get going early. So anything that we might be able to decide in June, or I hate to say it, but over the summer, something that might need to be in the capital budget, the earlier the better. As you know, it needs to fit within the number that we've committed to our 5 towns. So that's all I ask. Instead of holding until September, selfishly, it would be better for me to have this conversation in June again.
Sorry, what was the plan you were referencing?
So I know
There
we
is,
had an analysis done a few years ago. What was it? Probably 16, 17. We had DRA come out and do an analysis of the building. And I know Mr. Gillis referenced that in the letter he wrote. So I just want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to view that as well. Because we had given that report to Mr. Gillis, Mr. Geddick, and Mr. Peterson, because they were on the facility subcommittee at the time. So they have copies, but I want to make sure the rest of you have a copy as well.
Thank you.
So maybe we probably shouldn't set a date, but assuming the three of you, whoever the chair is, the reappointments to the subcommittee will take place in the May meeting.
Sure.
Will, if the three of you want to re-up and whoever the chair is says okay, and then we'd get a fourth member, perhaps we should think about an early mid-June meeting physically here at the high school.
Sure. Yes.
I think we can socially distance.
I think that would be
Not that
wonderful.
many of us.
Be wonderful. So, so we should, do we need to make a motion on the discussion or just table the discussion? Does that seem how we want to do this?
The agenda say.
Review and discuss recent correspondence. So it just really, I don't think it calls for a motion. We review and discuss.
I think you can make a motion just to say to table for further discussion at the main school committee meeting.
So there's no reason to rush a letter. I'd like to, okay, so I'll entertain a motion that we continue the discussion from the MSBA. The correspondence from the MSBA, does that sound reasonable?
But we're not going to do anything right now. We're not going to do anything in this window of opportunity.
We're going to
Perhaps you could just recommend to the school,
full committee.
inform the school committee that the facility subcommittee is recommending that we not submit an SOI for the current available window.
Okay,
I like that.
all right, so we'll have a, so Tara, make.
Well, I think
okay,
that's
go
why
ahead.
I'm saying table it until the next meeting, because I think I think you can do the recommendation. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. You can make the recommendation, but I think at the April meeting, you want to have a discussion. That's why I'm saying instead of making a motion, maybe it's better to just say continue it for further discussion.
But Kent, there's a time issue. We only have until early June. We kind of, if we're going to go forward and write a SOI, we need to start now. And I think the three of us, because Melanie and Brad agree with us, but I think the three of us is who votes, we agree not to send an SOI this year. But if we wait and talk to the whole school committee and they really want to do it, then we run into a problem because we don't really have time.
All right, so,
No, I know that, but my point is that I don't want to make that decision for other, and especially where, you're not, full representation isn't from all towns. Whereas to Brad's point, it's a regional school. So my point is like, if we say that you're basically saying, I understand it's a timing thing, but maybe this stuff could be distributed in advance of that. So people are made aware of it for the next, I get it's a timing thing,
Okay.
but I don't want to make that recommendation. I get the timing, but I don't want to make that recommendation for, i.e. the other rep for Burlington and other towns who are not here.
Well, I understand that. The challenge is that the school committee traditionally acts on the recommendations of the superintendent. I am not making a recommendation to the.
okay,
So I
And
am
the facility subcommittee,
I'm informing you folks that I don't recommend and I'm not making a recommendation that we submit an SOI. So I had no intention of putting the SOI on the agenda for the committee to vote it down. I was not going to include it on the agenda because it's not my recommendation to do it. Now, if you folks wanted it, the reason I'm checked in with you folks is to make sure that I'm not misreading the room, so to speak, and that I wanted to check in and kind of in your frame of mind, Kent, didn't want to make this decision for everybody. Having said that, I think it is, I mean, there's the process piece is a little awkward, but I just don't, I don't see, if I'm not bringing forward a recommendation, I don't see.
And I'm fine with, I agree with you guys, but my point is, I think it should be on the next agenda for the next meeting because
yes,
less than a week and a half away.
sure.
I think that's fine. I would vote in favor of, saying, because I agree, basically, in the fall, we would basically go to the different, get tours of like, whether it's selectmen or finance, like hopefully all of them. I mean, Christ's sakes, if even town meeting members for different towns want to come,
Yeah.
so you get their support, but I just think it should be on the next agenda for the next school committee meeting, because I would like for other members from, the new person coming in from Burlington and other towns who are not represented to weigh in. So I'm fine with making a recommendation that we don't do it this year, but I think the final decision should be made at the April school committee meeting, because I think those other towns and other members should have the opportunity to weigh in.
I'll make a motion that the facility subcommittee present to the full school committee in April that we've discussed the statement of intent and explain what it means, and that our recommendation jives with the superintendent's recommendation that we do not submit an SOI right now.
Pending a full school committee
So
vote.
this is my
Oh, okay.
motion to you guys.
Okay,
All right.
I get it.
Understood.
okay. Is there a second?
I can't second my own.
Kent?
Second.
Okay. So Mrs. Gillis,
Yes.
Mr. Moffett,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So unanimous 3-0. I will report out to the full committee on the 27th, what we've discussed here today. And going forth, I'd like to, we'll just put a tentative date. I don't know, we're thinking more June for our next meeting, depending on,
Would you rather wait till school's out, Melanie and Brad?
I think till after graduation. And again, that's selfish.
Let's get through graduation.
okay, that's our, that's our finish line, Brad. So let's.
Oh, you have no idea. Taryn will be speaking to me again after
I can see-
graduation,
yeah.
baby.
I can see the finish line. We'll have a tentative date, so I will say that we will have, we'll reconvene, and the date to be announced in June, this committee, and when reorganization has taken place. So Just want to understand if I get everything correctly. So say we come back down the road in the fall, Brad, and we decide to go ahead with this letter. We could submit it any time in the fall, correct? Doesn't
No.
have to, it has, there is a window of, okay. I'm
The
sorry.
window opens in
Window
January
open.
and closes. It opens in April and closes.
Okay.
Typically,
I just wondered.
I don't think this is their normal process.
This is a COVID weird. What's a normal process, Melanie? When are
Is it
they?
January and March or something?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought
Okay.
this was a little out of,
This is weird. They just all of a sudden said, hey,
Yeah.
we'll take letters. We'll take
So we
letters.
should be ready next January
So that's
to
about
make a
it.
decision about this again.
So
Correct.
if we send a letter, Brad, and Melanie knows, I just want to make sure I'm understanding everything. Send a letter in and they say, hey, yeah, we want to talk to you. So is that now when the feasibility study kicks in?
Well,
They allow us to do that?
we file a statement of interest, which
Yes.
is a 50-page document.
Sure.
It's not a letter.
I understand.
So I just want to be clear.
I'm
And-
sorry. We
Yeah,
filed
because
a
it's-
statement of interest. I'm sorry.
And which documents our need.
Gotcha. And then
And I
that's
can go over that. A lot of that information's in the packet that I gave.
right. And that's evaluated whether they like it or not. And then they
About
come,
100 to 125 statements of interest are submitted
Sure.
annually, and between 10 and 20 are accepted.
and then if they accept you, they will then say, we're going to have a feasibility study done,
Which you have to commit to funding.
but that's not split between you and the state. No.
No, you have to commit to funding your part.
We're apart. Okay, so now because you've been down this road. I've followed it when Baraca High did it. And I think Baraca High, Melanie, was like 50-something%, low 50s.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. So I know I followed the process, watched the meetings. It's a long road, Brad, from day one to finally opening the building. So if we get
Now
that
it'll be
point,
a year longer.
yeah, then you got to go to the towns and sell everybody what you're going to do. Yeah. Okay. I'm learning here. But I saw this and I talked to Melanie, I talked to Brad. I said, hey, let's dip our toe in the water. Maybe, who knows, So anyway, anything else, Taryn or Kent, on your minds?
So we
How's
could
the
be,
auditorium?
The auditorium, I should have taken a picture. There was a class in there today. I texted Melanie.
That's great.
Melanie and Jess Cook. I had walked by. There was one of the related classes was
That's great.
being held in there today.
it looks great.
It looks awesome.
Did that take a little longer than you thought?
Yes.
Okay.
Everything
And we
takes
ended up
time.
painting it at the end.
Yeah,
We're
okay.
still waiting. I think the
Okay.
curtain is due in next week, so it will have a new curtain,
Good.
but the painting took a little bit, as you can imagine. You've got to tape off all the chairs and really,
Well,
so
good.
But it
Well, that's
looks
great.
great.
Nice
It
to
was
have
worth
that
it.
space. Nice to have that space back. Thank you.
exactly. It looks
Thank
really
you.
good.
It's still only a 125-seat
I
auditorium,
know.
1,300
Yep.
student school.
That's why it's one of the things on my wish
Look
list.
at Bill
Anyway,
Ricca Memorial High School's auditorium.
yeah,
It's beautiful.
It's enormous. It's
Gorgeous.
enormous. 1,000 seats. All right. Well, maybe someday.
So I think that's all the business we have
That's
today,
about
Mr.
it.
Chairman.
All set. And okay, thank you for everybody taking time out of your day. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So motioned.
second,
And Mr. Moffett,
yes.
Mrs. Gillis,
Yes.
and the chair says aye. Thank you, folks. And we'll see you at the regular school committee meeting while we report out on the 27th. Have a great rest of
Thank
the
you,
day.
everybody.
We'll
Thank you.
see you in
everybody.
a couple of hours.
Yes, I'll see you in a
Right,
couple
Ken?
of hours.
Next
Ken, will you
thought?
come into that?
I'll catch up with you afterwards.
Okay,
Okay,
Sounds good.
Burlington Ways and Means tonight.
All right.
All right,
last
Sounds
one.
good.
Scott, thank you. We're done.
Thanks,
Thank
Scott.
you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.